top 7 inventions that were supposed to make life better, but made it worse. It was going to change everything. That was always the promise. More time, less stress, a life made easier by the brilliance of human ingenuity. And in the beginning, it usually did exactly what it said. The invention arrived, people marveled, and for a moment the future looked exactly as good as advertised. But then something happened. The thing that was supposed to free us began to bind us. The tool that was going to give us more time quietly took it away. The invention that promised to connect us left us lonelier than before. These are the 7 inventions that were supposed to make life better, and what they actually did instead. Number 7. The microwave oven. It was going to save time in the kitchen. When the microwave oven was introduced to American households in the 1970s, the promise was straightforward. Meals in minutes, cooking simplified, the burden of the kitchen lifted. By the 1980s, microwave ovens were in the majority of American homes, and the food industry had built an entire category of products designed specifically to be heated in them. What followed was not quite what anyone intended. The rise of the microwave accelerated the decline of home cooking. Ultra-processed microwave meals, high in sodium, preservatives, and refined carbohydrates, replaced the home-cooked meals they were meant to supplement. Research published in the British Medical Journal in 2019 found a direct association between ultra-processed food consumption and increased risk of cardiovascular disease, cancer, and early death. But the cost was not only nutritional. The family dinner, the ritual of cooking together, the knowledge of how to prepare food passed from one generation to the next began to disappear. A survey by the UK's Royal Society of Public Health found that 1 in 5 young adults in Britain could not cook a meal from scratch. The microwave saved time, but it quietly cost something tea. That time cannot buy back. Number 6. The leaf blower. This one is smaller than the others, but it is worth understanding. The leaf blower was introduced commercially in the 1970s as a labor-saving garden tool. It promised to replace the slow, quiet work of raking with something faster and more powerful. And it delivered on that promise completely. What it also delivered was noise. Sustained high-decibel, low-frequency noise that penetrates walls, disrupts sleep, raises cortisol levels, and has been measured in some models at over 100 decibels at the operator's ear, equivalent to standing beside a running chainsaw. The World Health Organization has identified noise pollution as the second largest environmental health risk in Western Europe after air pollution. But the leaf blower's real cost is something quieter than its noise. It destroyed the neighborhood Saturday morning. The shared ambient soundscape of a residential area, where you could hear children playing and birds and the wind, was replaced by an appliance that one person runs for 20 minutes and 300 people are forced to endure. It privatized the task and socialized the cost. One person saves time. Everyone else loses their morning. This pattern, one person's convenience becoming everyone else's burden, is more common than we realize. The leaf blower just makes it audible. Number 5. Open plan offices. It was supposed to encourage collaboration. The open plan office, which became the dominant workplace design in the 1990s and accelerated through the 2000s, was built on a compelling idea. Remove the walls. Let people see each other. Let ideas flow freely across the space. Build a culture of openness, spontaneity, and creative collision. What actually happened was documented extensively in research that the designers, unfortunately, did not consult before removing the walls. A landmark study by researchers at Harvard Business School, published in 2018, found that when companies transitioned to open plan offices, face-to-face interaction did not increase. It decreased by approximately 70%. Workers faced with constant visual and auditory exposure to their colleagues put in headphones, avoided eye contact, and communicated by email and message instead, even when the person they were writing to was sitting 3 feet away. Research by the University of Sydney found that the number 1 complaint of open-plan office workers was loss of privacy, followed by noise distraction. Productivity dropped. Sick days increased, likely because removing walls also removed barriers to the transmission of illness. The open-plan office was designed to make people more connected. It made them more isolated. It was designed to increase creativity. Research suggests it decreased it. It cost billions to implement across corporate real estate worldwide, and the people who had to work in it largely hated it. Number 4. Email. The promise was efficiency. Before email, communication at work required physical effort. A memo had to be typed, printed, walked across the office, and placed in someone's inbox. The friction was real, and the friction was useful because it meant that only things worth the effort of communicating got communicated. Email removed that friction entirely. And in doing so, it created something its inventors almost certainly did not anticipate: an obligation to be always available, always responsive, and always processing an inbox that never reaches zero. Research by the McKinsey Global Institute found that the average worker spends 28% of their working week reading and responding to email. A separate study by researchers at the University of California, Irvine, found that after being cut off from email for just 1 week, workers showed significantly reduced stress levels and were able to focus on tasks for longer without interruption. The problem is not email itself. The problem is what email became: the default expectation of instant, frictionless, around-the-clock communication that expanded to fill every hour of the working day and then continued into the evening. A 2019 survey by Adobe found that American workers spend an average of 5 hours per day on email. Many checked it first thing in the morning, before getting out of bed. Many checked it last thing at night. Email was supposed to make communication easier. It made it inescapable. Number 3. Social media. The original promise was connection. When Facebook launched to the general public in 2006, when Twitter became a cultural force in the late 2000s, when Instagram arrived in 2010, the framing was consistent. These are tools for staying connected with people you cared about, for sharing moments, for building community across distance. For a while, that is what they were. Then the business model clarified. Engagement, not connection, was what the platforms needed to survive. And the content that drove the most engagement was not the content that made people feel connected. It was the content that made people feel outraged, envious, anxious, or inadequate. Research by psychologist Jean Twenge, tracking data across millions of American adolescents, found a sharp increase in rates of depression, anxiety, and loneliness beginning around 2012, the year smartphone and social media adoption reached a tipping point. A meta-analysis published in JAMA Pediatrics in 2019 found a consistent association between social media use and depression and anxiety in young people. Frances Haugen, a former Facebook data scientist who became a whistleblower in 2021, revealed internal research showing that the company's own studies had found Instagram was harmful to the mental health of teenage girls. The company knew. The platform continued. Social media was supposed to make us more connected. The evidence increasingly suggests it made many people more lonely, more anxious, and less certain of their own worth. The connection it promised is real but thin, and the cost of that thinness has been paid largely by the young. Number 2. The smartphone. Everything in your pocket. When Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone in 2007, he described it as 3 things: a widescreen iPod, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communicator. The audience laughed with delight. It seemed impossible and then immediately obvious. Of course, this was what came next. What came next, in the years following, was not only convenience. It was the collapse of boredom, the elimination of silence, the end of being unreachable, and the construction of a device so carefully engineered to hold your attention that the average person now touches their phone over 2,000 times per day, according to research by Scout. Former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris, who went on to found the Center for Humane Technology, has described the smartphone as a slot machine in your pocket. The variable reward of checking your phone, not knowing whether the next pull will bring a message, a like, a notification, or nothing, activates the same dopamine pathways as gambling. Research by the American Journal of Preventive Medicine found that high social media use on smartphones was associated with significantly increased feelings of social isolation. Research by Common Sense Media found that teenagers spend an average of 7 hours and 22 minutes per day on screens, not including screen time for school. The smartphone gave us everything: maps, music, communication, cameras, knowledge, connection. It also gave us distraction, comparison, anxiety, and a relationship with our own attention that most of us are still trying to understand and repair. It is the most successful invention of the modern era, and it may also be the most complicated one. Number 1. Labor-saving devices. This is the largest one, and the oldest trick. The 20th century delivered an extraordinary array of devices designed to reduce the amount of time spent on household labor. The washing machine, the dishwasher, the vacuum cleaner, the dryer, the refrigerator. Each one was presented as liberation, particularly for women, from the endless, grinding, time-consuming work of maintaining a home. And each one did reduce the time required for its specific task. Laundry that once took a full day now took an hour. Dishes that required hand-washing after every meal could be loaded into a machine and forgotten. The hours that had been consumed by these tasks were, in theory, now free. But something unexpected happened, documented by historians and sociologists beginning in the 1970s. The time freed by labor-saving devices was not banked. It was consumed by rising standards. Historian Ruth Schwartz-Cowan, in her landmark 1983 book More Work for Mothers, showed that despite the introduction of every major labor-saving household device through the 20th century, the average time American women spent on housework did not decrease. It stayed roughly constant, or in some periods increased, because the standards for cleanliness, tidiness, and domestic perfection rose in direct proportion to the capacity of the machines to meet them. Clothes were now washed more frequently. Floors were vacuumed more often. Meals became more elaborate because the refrigerator made more ingredients available. The machine did more work, and then more work was required of the machine. The labor-saving device did not save labor. It redefined the standard of what was necessary. And the person doing the work, usually a woman, found herself working just as hard as before, only now with better equipment. This is perhaps the most honest lesson in the history of invention. We do not use tools to do the same things with less effort. We use them to raise the bar, and then we wonder why we are still tired. And that's the end of today's countdown. Some memories make us laugh, some make us think, and some remind us how much the world has changed. If this video brought back a memory, share it with someone who would understand. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.